Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we are back working on the big Golden's cane mill back here that we've been working on for quite some time now, the big monster cane mill. And today what I want to work on is get the last set of Babbitt bearings poured on this, at least get started on it. Not sure how far along we'll get. But before I can do it, I've got to make a pouring mandrel, which is what we've had to do pretty much for all these before. So these are the bearings that will fit on the bottom rollers. There's two rollers that go on the bottom. There's the big roller on the top, the two rollers on the bottom that kind of feed the cane through and crush the cane as it goes through. These bearings basically are only half bearings. You have Babbitt that will just cover half of the piece because the way the pressure is always pushing out on these. You don't have bearings on the backside. There's just no reason for them, so they never put them in there. We've already turned the journals and got all those polished out quite some time ago on the rollers, and I've got to go get that measured and remember exactly what the measurement is. I turned them all to the same size, and my game plan here today is that we're going to make a mandrel out of a piece of thick wall tubing, kind of like we did for the top one. We got some rings here that we'll use for positioning. I got to machine those so they'll all fit in here. And we will rig all this up so that we can kind of set our bearing half out. We'll lay the piece in here kind of like such. That will be the bearing diameter. And we'll use this to pour the bearings with. So that's kind of the game plan for today. And we're going to get started by working on the mandrel. First things first, we're going to go get our piece of tubing set up over in the lathe and get this turned to the proper diameter for this particular job. And typically when I'm making a pouring mandrel for Babbitt bearings, I know that you want to have a little bit of clearance in there. You don't want it to be super tight. You want that to be able to spin freely, have room for oil to get in there, and also realize that when this Babbitt cools down, it kind of shrinks just a little bit up against there. Usually it's really tight getting the piece out that you poured against. So I typically make my mandrels about 0.010 of an inch larger in diameter than the actual shaft. And the ending result is you end up with a bearing surface that's already pretty much a little bit oversized again to have the oil clearance and all that you need for a good proper running Babbitt bearing. So we will go measure those journals and we'll turn the shaft about 0.010 over, and then we'll work on getting our positioning rings figured out. So let's go over here to the lathe and see if we can get started on this. I've got my piece of tubing set up over here on the lathe, the big Monarch lathe. I got it in the 3-jaw chuck. I've got a big bullnose center in here kind of supporting the end down here. And we need to turn this down, what did I figure up? 4.595 will be about where we need to end up at. 4 inches, 595 thousandths. I think this is about, I don't know what it is. This is 6 something right now. No, it's right just under 5 inches. So 5, yeah, just say 5.875, 5 7/8, something like that. So we got a fair amount to take off of it. And let's get in here and fire the lathe up and get her done. We'll just start about right there. Catch off here. Take about 100 thousandths on the first pass. Figure out where we're at here. We're at about 8, 25, 35, 41, 841. It appears to be turning pretty straight, so that's good. right, take another 100 thousandths off. $624. All right, we're taking about 20 thousandths on this pass. Should still leave me around 10 to finish up on. I like, when I've been taking heavy passes like that, I like to finish up with a couple of light passes. My fear is taking a heavy pass and going to a light pass, your lathe may not cut exactly the same. So I take finish with 2 light passes, and then I can usually hit my number like I want to hit it. On this older equipment, sometimes it just seems to work a little bit better. So anyway, we'll get another measurement after this one and dial in that final little bit. But we should be really close to our final number right here. Let's see where we're at. I'm going to dial in that last little bit, and we'll see where we end up here. And let's see where we ended up here. Shooting for 495. All right, come on, micrometer. There it is. And all right, we hit 496. I think I can live with that for a Babbitt bearing mandrel. That'll be fine. Let me measure it in a couple of places here. Yep, 496. $496, so we're good. All right, I'm gonna probably just cut this little piece off the end down here, and we don't need it. That's plenty long enough for what we need, so I think we're ready to roll. All right, so the next step here is we need to bore out our fixturing rings for the cylinder that we just turned there to get it to where it'll slide up over this, and we'll also have to put a step in it like we've done before for getting everything positioned right. We'll show that process, but first let's bore this out over on the mill. Like before, where I've done these recently, I've opted to do this on the milling machine rather than on the lathe, because when I grip these in my chuck, because of this thickness here, the boring bar would hit into the chuck if you fixed them into the plates on there. So it's just easier to do it on the milling machine, and I can bore them all at one time. So that's the game plan here. We'll just turn things on and let it bore this out. All right, first pass. Come up. And we will turn this out. I'm going to do about do about 30-40 thousandths per cut here. And we'll just get it to clean up, get a measurement, and go from there. So let's continue on. I'm using a boring head to do this with, which is a typical tool for boring on the milling machine. Because of the diameter, I'm actually going on the outside swing of it. But basically, you just there's a little dial on the end there that you can measure off of to see how much you're incrementing each cut. And you just keep making repetitive passes until you get the diameter you want. Kind of get an idea of where we're starting at. We're at about 425, and we're going to 4. So we're about 4 inches, 250 thousandths. We're going to 4 inches, what is it, 595. So we've got a good bit to come out of there. I'm going to go ahead and let's do a 50 thousandths cut. All right, one more measurement here, and I'm shooting to go a little bit oversized. 595 is the same size as my shaft, or 596. We're at about 586, so I need about another, 10 thousandths or so. So I'm just going to dial in 10 thou. And we'll let her, let her roll here. Nope. There we go. This should be my last pass. All right. Verify our measurement. That should slide over. So we'll go ahead and take it out and try them out. All right, here's our disc. I'm just going to deburr this using my little Noga deburring tool. Do both sides. Let's try it out. It's going to be just right. Just enough clearance to slide on there. Very good. Most of you guys have seen me do these before, but the idea here is that these will sit up on here. They'll dam the end to the Babbitt up, but I'm also going to turn a step in here that will sit into this ledge that will fixture it in the right spot. So next thing to do is to measure this and go cut that step in these over on the lathe, and then we'll have this thing indexed together where we can hopefully pour some Babbitt. Now let's figure out what this diameter is. Looks like it's going to be 5 inches. I think I'm going to do is just go ahead and cut that step in there. So again, I'm going to cut a 5-inch step in here, which will leave a little lip that will set down in there, and the lip will set on this, and you'll have a step that will come out over the edge, and that will help seal the Babbitt up, keep it from leaking out. So let's go over to the lathe, and we'll cut that step in there. I got my ring over here on the lathe, and again, the idea here is I want to cut a step that's 5 inches in diameter in half the thickness. This is 3/8, so we want to go 3/16, which is 0.1875. So let's fire up the lathe. Not worried about the outside diameter of this at all. I'm going to slow my speed down a little bit fast for that larger diameter. I'm just going to kind of touch off on here. I'm going to zero out my digital readout on the Z-axis, and I'm just going to start facing in. All right, I'm going to stop right there for right this minute, and I just want to get a diameter on that. All right, I think my digital readout's still set with this tool, so I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to go in closer to the 5-inch mark. I'm going to stop right there. Take another pass. We'll measure this diameter here. Okay, we're at 5.111, 112, 5.2, we're going to 5. Check and see where I'm at. Still about. All right, this should be it. Double check that measurement. Good on that. Let's break our corners. That should do it. Do the other one just the same way, and we'll have our fixturing rings done. All right, I'm going to put these bearing pieces up in a vise here. I'm just going to roughly get these level with one another across the tops. And the whole concept here of these fixturing plates is that little flange, little step is going to sit right down the inside there. Again, the flange will cover up the outside. That will position the pouring mandrel in the part so that it's centered up like it needs to be, and we can heat this up and pour the Babbitt. So I need to get the primer cleaned out on the inside of these real quick and get set up for pouring Babbitt, but I think we're about ready. All right, I'm going to start by just putting some of my damming material in here, kind of making a little bit of a gasket between that flange and the part. And we'll use a clamp and kind of clamp it all in place here in a minute. I've got my Babbitt simmering over here on the camp stoves. Probably hear that in the background cooking, heating up. All right. All right, we got our damming material in there. It's kind of squeezing out like it should. I'm just going to kind of go around the outside of this and make sure that that's in there tight, because that is the place that the Babbitt can leak out. The other place it can leak out is around this inner ring here. So I'm going to put a little bit of Babbitt right or damming material around that. The idea here is that Babbitt's going to be molten, and if there's any gap that's in there that it can escape through, you'll get a leak. And if your Babbitt starts leaking out, you just make a mess and you have to melt everything out and start over again. So we're just trying to prevent that up front. All right. And then I'm going to get my torch out. We'll start preheating this in preparation for the Babbitt pour. All right, here we go with some heat. And here we go with the pour. One ladle's not enough. Quickly grab the second ladle. And pour that in. All right, we've given this a little bit of time to cool down. It is still hot, but it should be cool enough to separate the mandrel here. I want to go ahead and take a look and see how this one went. Didn't really like the fact that we weren't able to get it all in one pour. And, you know, I think they got a bigger ladle out at the museum. I may go out there and borrow that and do the rest of them with that larger ladle. But let's see how these turned out. Having to do them in two sections probably not very good. Let's see how that looks. Actually, that's not bad. At least on this side, yeah. I'm happy with that. But I still think I'm going to get that bigger ladle to do the rest of them, which means I probably won't be able to finish this today. So just getting in here closer and taking a closer look at it. I'm going to let these cool down and play with them a little bit. I think that they bonded together. You can see a line right there, and you can't see it, but there's another one over here. This one's not as obvious on this side, but I don't know how well that bonded together. I may melt these out and see if I can do it all with a single pour, which would be probably what I'm going to do, just to be on the safe side, but that's kind of where we're at. Well, the jury's still out. I do want to let these cool down. Probably just going to re-pour them. Again, I'm just not happy with that little seam in there, and if I can get that bigger ladle out there to make it a little bit easier to do this all in a single pour, and I won't have to stay up at night worrying about this, it's probably fine. But it's also not a big deal just to do this over again. So I'm running out of time for today's video, guys. I'm going to go ahead and post this one where we're going to leave off right here. I will probably come back and pour these off camera. You guys have seen the process now, I don't know how many times, and I just need to get it done. So when we come back, we're going to be finishing, trying to get this thing put back together and hopefully finished up here before too terribly much longer. We're getting really close to having this thing done. There's still some work to do, but we're getting really, really close on it. So anyway, that's kind of where we are right now. Hope you enjoyed that. Guys, thanks for watching. As always, please subscribe if you haven't already. Thumbs up, comments, they really great, help out a lot. Please leave a comment. Please give me that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Big, huge thank you to those who support the site financially through Patreon and PayPal. Really helps out. Lets me take the time to shoot the videos and edit them and everything else that goes on. I'm a one-man operation. I do everything myself, and it takes a lot of time to do all this. And the guys that do help out a little bit there, it really does help out a lot. So there are information for that down in the description if that's something you want to help out with. And with that, we're going to get out of here. We'll catch you on the next video again. As always, thanks for watching.